What is up, my house flipping 101 family? What is up? What is up, my house flipping 101 family? Today was a good day. Today was a whirlwind. All right. But I had the great opportunity to bring you guys some context and some additional um content when it comes to looking at renovations, specifically that Airbnb. This group is specifically for real estate investors that are struggling to do more deals, that don't have the experience, that don't have the knowledge base, but are growing in this particular area. This group is specifically for you, right? So also too, if you want to do more deals, this group is specifically for you in our area. There's so many good benefits that come from working with a established network. It's not even funny. And today kind of was the start of some of that, right? We're always looking for the best ways to add the best value when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to people, when it comes to service, etc. So that's why we do these trainings, right? So these trainings are a great opportunity to expand your knowledge base. And today we're talking about contractors, right? Which could make or break you on any given project, right? It's probably one of the most important topics because real estate comes with construction. They just go hand in hand, right? And you can't avoid them, right? So this particular training is going to be a no fluff training. I got to take the gloves off when it comes to this, and I told you about my specific experience, which is I hired a contractor and I fired a contractor. I hired a contractor and I fired a contractor. I hired a third contractor and I finally got through the project. All right. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that particular story because it ended up costing me some money. And I'm just lucky that the numbers worked out and we had enough cushion to, so the first guy that I hired, I remember he was just like, yeah, he actually found the house for me. And one of the deals that we had was, he found the house. I just want to do the work. All right. And I was like, okay, he had done the work before, but he was very inconsistent. He was like, yeah, I'll just stay at the house and da da da. And then he started missing days, and then excuses started happening. And then there was a level of inconsistency that was kind of happening on the project that really didn't make me happy. And for me, I'm not sure if I handled it completely 100% correct, but I'm very accountable, right? So my accountability first starts with my relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and then it goes out to other people. But so when I saw this level of accountability that wasn't there with the excuses and not showing up, I confronted them about it, and things kind of went south, right? So now we're trying to figure out how do we do this exit in a way that makes the most sense. He wants more than the value of the work that he's already put out, and I want less, right? As the contractor, well, I wasn't a contractor then. I was just the investor. So, and I remember on this, he wanted more, and then I gave him more because what happened was he threatened. He's like, man, if you don't give me this, I'm gonna call the city and I'm gonna show them every screw that was moved in this house. I got pictures or whatever, right? And at that point, when I heard that and we didn't pull any permits, I was kind of like, I got to get this guy out of here. I got to get him out of this house. I got to get him out of this way and be done with the situation. Sometimes it's the best way to kind of handle it. And then I remember the second guy that I hired started out good, right? I went back on my schedule for payment, and sometimes he was ahead of me and he was just like, oh, just pay me a little bit every week. And then what happened was that was not a that I got ahead, right? And then when I got to 1 week, and then I go actually you're ahead, so I don't have payment for you. He was just kind of like, you ran out of money, I'm out of here. And that put me in a bad place. But now I have very specific schedules and very specific um, um, thresholds that you need to meet to get to, your payment. Obviously, some smaller guys, you're flexible with them, but you need to understand this is not a joke. I think with the three that I hired and fired and stuff like that, I think I probably lost probably in time and in money, probably close to $15,000, right? So you don't need to learn this specific lesson yourself, right? This is what I'm here for. This is what Brandon's here for, right? And it's strengthened through going through the specific fires. So that's why I'm excited about this specific training, because I don't want these same things to happen to you, right? So I'm going to give you all of the pointers and the 5-step system to managing a contractor effectively. All right. So one of the first things that you need to do is, this is homework on you, and it's not only on the contractor, right? Which is walking the property with the scope of work, right? So that's one of the biggest things that you need to come into an understanding with. What is the scope of work? What absolutely has to be done, and what's documented, right? For the contractor to get done, right? So what this does is nailing down the scope of work allows you to hand the same bid package or the same scope of work to do two different contractors and get the same information back, right? Sometimes if you allow the contractor to put the proposal together, you don't know what you're going to get in there, right? But when you're able to put the scope of work together, you know exactly all of the steps, all of the people, all of the players, all of the necessary things that are needed to, execute on this project, right? So you're probably saying to me, Sam, how do I execute on a scope of work agreement? ChatGPT, right? It's easy for you to kind of look up a scope of work template into ChatGPT specifically for home remodeling, and it'll spit something out for you that's probably plenty good enough, right, as a starting point. But don't come off the top of your head with a scope of work. You need a template, and you start with that as your baseline. And then as you go on, you'll build on it and understand exactly what needs to happen as soon as you look at a contract. For me, as soon as I look at a proposal, I'm looking for where the holes are, what's not in here. That's just kind of how my brain and my mind works, because it tells me the whole story. So when you get a contract from a contractor, having that scope of work already prepared eliminates a lot of the problems that you're going to have, which is that's not in the proposal, right? So you don't want to leave it up to them, right? You want to take control over what that looks like. You want to define the materials, finishes, the responsibilities before hiring anybody, right? Get all of those things streamlined, right? So that's the thing that you have control over as the investor, right? So they always say get 3 bids. You always want to know apples to apples. And the best way to get to the apples to apples is to have that scope of work done, right? If you don't have it, you won't get apples to apples. You'll get apples you think are apples, but they're really oranges, right? There no two estimates are exactly the same unless you put together that scope of work. So now you're able to get your 3 proposals, and then now there's always red flags that you need to watch out for in bids, right? And the biggest red flag in bids is missing information, right? If it's not detailed, the level of details are going to be so important in not getting stuck, right? And the more details, the better. The more it protects you as the contractor, and it protects you as the homeowner investor, right? So the more details, the better, right? The more detailed the contractor is, the more on his game he probably is in executing on this particular vision for you, right? So you want to look out for red flags there. You also want to pay attention to Does he respond to emails? Does he show up when he says he's supposed to? Right? How you do anything is how you do everything. These are things that are going to be important in selecting this person that's going to either make or break your project. Right? There's a whole bunch of other things like questionnaires and stuff like that you can go through, and also references that can help you streamline this particular person. But I'm not going to be going over that right now. So the more educated you are on the process, the better it is for you as the investor. All right. So use. All right. Step number 3: use a contractor agreement. All right. Always have a contract before you start doing some work, right? So when I think about this, I used to watch a lot of Judge Milian, right? The People's Court. I don't even know if that's still on, right? And she says all the time, grab the crayon and grab the nearest toilet paper and write it down, right? So there's never should be an excuse for you to pay someone without getting something in your hand that firmly tells you exactly why that is, right? So obviously, if you're paying a guy cash, that's something that's a little bit different. I would still kind of be wary of that. For tax reasons, you want to have those things documented, and you want to know where that payment is going, so it's allocated to that particular asset. But this is going to be important, right? So there's 3 keys, right? So the first one was making sure that you have a written contract, but here's the 3 keys. All right, payments tied to milestones, absolutely important. Absolutely should have payments attached to milestones. We have a bunch of different milestones, right? In our process, and then that's what those milestones will trigger, these different payments to come in, right? So also too, setting up a penalties for late, right? So there's a thing called acts of God that made the project run over, and then there's also poor execution that makes the project go over. The more days that you miss on the project, the higher it increases the chance of the price going up, and then also too, and it sends you over budget, right? So that's an issue as well. So having deadlines on when the work is supposed to be delivered and having the penalty that it triggers is going to be important as well. All right. So scope change approvals, right? Never just say yes to the contractor on this change that needs to happen. Get it in writing, right? You want to absolutely get that thing in writing, and you want to also separate your change orders from all of your other expenses that are coming in, right? So now this is going to tell you a whole story, right? You set up your initial budget for the renovation, right? And you're tracking all of those expenses as they come in on your ledger, and then you want to have a little separate sheet that talks about your change orders. And the reason why you want to do it like that is because once you're done with the particular project, I always do what's called a lessons learned, which is like an autopsy for renovators and construction and stuff like that. What went right, what didn't go right in every aspect of the project, right? You want to track those things, right? This is how you get better in execution. But once I know all of the change orders that were missing off of my prior proposal, guess what I do? I almost take a transparent and I take the change orders and I overlay it on top of the scope of work, and then now I build from there, right? So now I have certain things to expect. Now I have certain anticipations that I might see now as the investor that the contractor doesn't see, but because I have my lessons learned and I have my experience, I could land on an idea or thought of where this price may increase and might happen or might not happen, right? So this is how this is the elevated level of thinking to make sure that you get through all of these hurdles. So scope change approval process, right? Don't just say yes to the contractor to move forward on something. Get the firm price on it. Don't wait to the end. right? Because a lot of disagreements and back and forths happens with the investor and the contractor at the very end when they're trying to get paid. You said yes, yes, yes to a few different um, to a few different approvals, and then now he's trying to get paid at the end, and then now is this big ruckus you barely remember that you said yes to, right? But if there's a signature on it, then you definitely said yes. So break up the payments into multiple milestones, right? So sometimes you might want to break up the payments into 4, 5, 6, more than 5. So about 5, 6, or 7 different payments triggered by different milestones when the contractor get there, right? You don't want them to be too far ahead of you, and you don't want to be too far behind, right? So that's just one of the things that you want to be prepared for, right? Do they have communication tools, right? One of the things that we do is on a weekly basis, we give a report, videos, text. Here's what happened. Here's what didn't happen. Here's what next week looks like. Here are some of the things that are in the works. And you want to make sure that they have some sort of solid level of communication and require it, right? Require a weekly update, right? Expect that from the contractor. But after having a conversation with them, like, hey, listen, how do you give us updates? I expect to have an written update, on a weekly basis on where we're at. Is that too much for you? Is that not too much for you from a communication standpoint? But it gets the thing in writing, and then now you have a trackable process, trackable communication on when and where things broke down, right? You could see the holes, you could see the picture a lot clearer looking back once you have this sort of level of documentation. I know for me as the contractor, these are the types of things that are important to me in having the right documentation, throughout the process. So those are the types of things that you want to make sure you have. All right. So do surprise walkthroughs. Pop in on the project. Look around. Talk to the guys. See what's going on. What is supposed to happen this week? I would say allow the contractors show you who they are. Don't just jump down somebody's throat just to be jumping down their throat. If there's several inconsistencies there in showing up, obviously you have to do what you need to do to move the project along. But in construction, things change all the time, right? And especially if you're not on schedule, things will change rapidly. So, all right. So track budget on a weekly. All right. Each week you want to tally, have your running log going. You want to be tallying up your budget. You want to cross-reference your projected to your actual, right? How are the numbers actually coming in? Are you over budget on certain places? Can you save on certain places? This is the value that a designer brings to the table. They're looking to make these items fit within this specific budget for you, and they have a better grasp on how to execute on that compared to you as the investor. So there's great benefits in having and working with a designer. All right, I work with a designer on every project. Right, it just makes my life a lot easier when it comes to the planning, the counting, the ordering, the materials, the details, everything attached to it is. And I know not everybody could do that. Once you get comfortable, then sky's the limit. Sky's the limit there. All right, include change order tracking, weekly project pause meeting. So meeting on a weekly basis, whether it's a phone call or whether it's a video check-in, just to kind of see where we're at during the project is going to be very, very important in managing, the contractor and managing the timeline and not getting caught in a cookie jar, right? So, those are the types of things that I highly recommend that you implement and you think about when you're hiring a contractor and when you're trying to stay on budget, right? So one of the things that I had quoted here, all right, where did I put it? But anyways, I took this course, and it was this PhD professor that wrote a presentation on project schedules. And what he talked about with project schedules is how the timeline will affect the execution and the price, right? And if the timeline increases, the profit decreases, and how manpower is important to executing and staying on a timeline. So the best contractors stay on schedule. And I want to read this particular stat for you, right? This is what it says. It says stat. It says 80% of flips go over budget or past time, right? Don't be a statistic. All right, budget and timeline creeps equals lost profit, right? That's what I was talking about. And making sure that you have a plan that's going to eliminate as much friction as possible is going to be what you need to grow into to be the best version of yourself and be the best investor possible, right? So hopefully you got a lot out of that. I definitely reached into my bag. This process, this point, when it comes to hiring contractors, is so important. And keep the good ones. Continue to analyze the people that are working for you. Don't settle, right? Don't settle. Right? Continue to get better at each position so you can get the speed and execution. And we make our money with our speed. The ability to turn it quickly is how we make our money as flippers. So don't forget that. Outside of that, have a great day.